Welcome to my channel. This is part 1 of the video where we're listing our top picks for the most eerie mysteries that have been solved today. However, a brand new shocking written testimony is discovered in 1937. A group of scholars discovered a message from the Zodiac Killer, solving a 50-year-old riddle. We're listing our top picks for the most eerie mysteries that have been solved today. However, a brand new shocking written testimony is discovered in 1937. Number 30, the Long Island serial killer. Who killed all those ladies in New York was one of the most compelling mysteries of the early 21st century. Since the early 1990s, the Long Island serial killer has killed at least 11 people, disposing of the majority of their bodies along Gilgo Beach. Now that the Long Island Ripper is a renowned serial killer, 4 of them are officially recognized as his victims. Until the 59-year-old architect Rex Andrew Hoyerman was detained and accused of 3 charges of first-degree murder in the summer of 2023, the deaths remained unsolved. This is the individual that the police have apprehended. Official DNA evidence has connected Hoyerman to a number of the victims. He is presently pleading not guilty and has been accused of 6 of the killings as of June 2024. On his behalf, his court-appointed counsel enters a not guilty plea. Number 29. The burial place of Richard III. Unsolved deaths have always been fascinating and a touch unsettling, particularly when they concern a well-known figure like Richard III. The last English king to fall in combat was King Henry IV of England, who was assassinated in the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485. Richard became the last monarch of England to fall on the battlefield, leading with remarkable bravery. After that, we simply stopped remembering where he was. I apologize. Richard's remains were buried in Leicester's Greyfriars Church, but when the church was destroyed in 1536, the tomb vanished and was forgotten. A king vanished, time went by, and the former church property was developed into a parking lot. But in 2012, 476 years after his grave was reduced to rubble, Richard was eventually located in this parking lot. Number 28. The case of Margie Galovic. Working at her mother's restaurant in Indiana, Margie Galovic got to know Randy Yeager, a biker who belonged to the Outlaws organization. The gang was said to be extremely violent, and it was the subject of multiple investigations into allegations of robbery, murder, and even terrorism. Galovic became convinced that the cops were after them as she dedicated herself to Yeager and stood up for him. September 1997 saw her rise and disappear. She hasn't driven her automobile to wherever she's gone. Her family feels confused and anxious at the same time. The fact that her asthma inhaler was abandoned suggests she was taken without her will. However, that was untrue. Not until October 2014 was Galovic and Yeager discovered cohabiting in Mexico. Unfortunately, Galovic lost his life while evading the authorities in his car. Yeager was apprehended and sentenced to 15 years in jail. Number 27. The disappearance of Stardust. The simple act of an airplane taking off and taking off again will always be unsettling. On August 2, 1947, a plane dubbed Stardust disappeared while traveling from Argentina to Chile. This incident became well known. The airplane never made it to the airport, and an attempt at locating it during a search and rescue mission was unsuccessful. It has just vanished, and it would go missing for more than 50 years. 2 climbers discovered the Stardust wreck at Mount Tupungato in the late 1990s, sparking years of conspiracy theories. Subsequent investigations appeared to indicate that the pilots had most likely misjudged their position after coming into a jet stream and unintentionally flew into the cloud-obscured peak. Subsequently, the accident caused an avalanche, burying the aircraft and impeding rescue efforts. Within seconds of the catastrophic crash, Stardust was buried. Number 26. Young Monica Banila. Following John Lennon's assassination in 1980, Guillermo and Rosemary Banila's marriage started to fall apart. Soon after, Guillermo Banila started behaving and dressing like John Lennon and claimed to be the musician who had been reincarnated, telling Rosemary so. After work on September 22, 1982, Rosemary returned home to discover everything gone, including their small daughter Monica, Guillermo, and furnishings. A few years later, Nylene Marshall's disappearance was reported in an Unsolved Mysteries episode. Nylene's family has been trapped in anguish at not knowing what happened to her for more than 7 years. The producers received a call from a Vancouver school official who suggested that one of the students, Mary Kelly, might be the missing Marshall. After looking into Kelly, the FBI found that she was actually Monica Banila, who was also missing, and not Nylene Marshall. After her mother received her safely back, she referred to the strange coincidence as God's will. Number 25. the Mary Celeste. In North American history, it's most likely the most well-known ghost ship. The Mary Celeste was discovered drifting and deserted off the coast of Western Europe on December 4, 1872. The crew's belongings and the cargo were mostly found, and the boat itself was in fair condition. The captain, his family, and the crew had disappeared, leaving no trace behind. Many analysts think that something extremely concerning had to have happened, even though we're still not entirely sure what transpired. The men discovered functional charts, but not the ship's documents, maps, or navigating aids. With nearly 1,700 barrels of alcohol, the explosive idea is among the most widely accepted. It's possible that the barrels began to leak, which would have prevented any smoke or burning in the aftermath, and instead resulted in either a strong gas stench or a tiny pressure wave explosion. In any case, it's probably because the skipper gave the order to yawl and in a rush forgot to fasten it to the boat. The guys were left to perish on the open ocean when the ship eventually drifted away. At last, the true story of the Mary Celeste may be revealed thanks to the efforts of an international team of researchers. Number 24. The Freeman Arson. On December 30th, 1999, around 5:30 a.m., police received a report of a fire at Danny and Kathy Freeman's residence. The volunteer fire department receives a devastating trailer fire call on a chilly, gloomy morning. It was inside that they discovered the shot bodies of Kathy and Danny. Ashley, the adolescent daughter of the Freemans, and Laura Bible, her friend, who was staying there that night, went missing. It took close to 20 years for the crime to be solved. The girls disappeared completely from the face of the planet. Nothing exists, not even clothes or phone calls. 2018 saw the arrest and charging of 66-year-old Ronnie Busick on 4 counts of murder, including the killings of Bible and Ashley Freeman. It's thought that Busick killed the Freemans, set fire to their home, and abducted the teenagers along with 2 other people, the deceased Warren Welch and David Pennington. Thanks to, quote, good behavior, Busick admitted guilt and completed just 38 months of his 10-year sentence. After receiving a 10-year prison sentence, he was freed on Friday morning. Number 23. A Zodiac Cipher is finally cracked. Because of his mysterious personality and the strange ciphers he created, the tale of the Zodiac Killer never gets old. Only one of the 4 cryptograms created by the Zodiac had been deciphered prior to 2020. Even the most skilled codebreakers were unable to crack the remaining 3 for several decades after the first was swiftly cracked in 1969. That is, until private citizens cracked another encryption in December 2020. Z340 is a riddle that was first sent out on November 8, 1969, and it alludes to the Zodiac's acceptance of death. I hope you are having a great time attempting to catch me, as it partially reads. He asserts that he is not frightened of the gas chamber since it will get him to paradise sooner, and that his new life in paradise will be simple. There are 2 more Zodiac ciphers that need to be cracked open. Number 22. The Lost Roanoke Colony. It's also one of the greatest mysteries in America's simplicity. In 1585, some colonists established themselves in what is now North Carolina. The Roanoke Colony was the name given to this. In order to obtain further supplies in England, explorer John White departed the colony in 1587. Upon his return, he saw the settlement had been eerily abandoned. War had delayed his return, and by the time he did, in 1590, the colony was vanished, leaving only the name Croatoan carved into the wall as a marker. White concluded, probably correctly, that the colonists had moved on to Croatoan Island, which was nearby. Although we can't be certain, a wealth of indirect evidence suggests that the colonists moved on and blended in with the indigenous tribes after losing hope that White would return. They travel 500 miles to Georgia before arriving in safety. In fact, the Hatteras tribe of today believes that they are descended from the vanished Europeans. Maybe the colonists made it through, and they both prospered in the newly acquired land alongside the Croatoan people. Number 21. Dyatlov Pass. Many questions seem to have an answer in avalanches. The renowned Dyatlov Pass incident in 1959 occurred when 9 hikers perished in mysterious circumstances after escaping the shelter of their tent in the dead of night. Questions persisted for many years after their deaths were first attributed to a powerful natural force. Ultimately, investigators are left with no explanation for the events that occurred. However, technological developments brought about a sensible solution in 2020. Avalanche. The hikers probably ran from the tent in fear after hearing avalanche rumblings. According to additional research, some of the victims suffered terrible bodily injuries after being struck by a slab avalanche, while the others perished from hypothermia after becoming disoriented in the night. Numerous unbiased organizations have concurred that this response is the most likely one, supporting it. Number 20. The fate of the Franklin expedition. Francis, I won't lose another man. We may lose every man you have. For ages, navigators searched for a northwest route across the Arctic Ocean that would connect the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans, but their missions frequently ended in tragedy. Hey, Georgie, it's the ice. Just the ice is involved. John Franklin, a British Royal Navy commander, had one of the most well-known in 1845. The ships of his mission, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, never came back. Search teams found only human bones and artifacts, but over time, we were able to put the whole story together. The crew perished from malnourishment, cold, and famine when the ship became stuck in pack ice. In 2014 and 2016, the sunken Erebus and Terror were eventually located. Number 19. Pierre April. Not very nice lumps of stuff sometimes return. Imagine having no idea who you are or where you've come from when you wake up in a ditch with only $17 in your pocket. Pierre April, the amnesiac, experienced that in May 1992. After being discovered lost on San Diego's streets, April was brought to a shelter. Faces and talents and other bits of his life began to return to him, but his attempts to make a connection to his former life were unsuccessful. His case was highlighted on an Unsolved Mysteries episode in September. This city, I was so sure, would bring everything back, but it didn't. An old colleague of April's called Carol witnessed this occurrence. She gave the show's tip line a call and gave them all the information they required. April's memory has subsequently returned after he was joyfully reunited with his family. Being told who you are and what you have done is weird. Once more, I'm someone. Number 18. Umbrella Man. Conspiracies abound around the killing of John F. Kennedy in November 1963. Some of the more interesting ones were a person who was seen waving an umbrella despite the brilliant weather in pictures and videos of the occasion. There seems to be only one person in all of Dallas standing beneath an open black umbrella. Was he involved in the assassination somehow? For 15 years, he was a mystery until 1978, when Louis Stephen Witt stepped forward. Witt, who went by the moniker Umbrella Man, explained that the umbrella was intended as a symbolic statement against Kennedy. The umbrella was the go-to item for British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain, who was first emboldened by the Nazi Party. It alluded to the umbrella of Neville Chamberlain, and with that, a tantalizing mystery of the world vanished with an unsatisfactory response. Number 17. The Paulding Light of Michigan. Alright, enough with very disappointing responses. Let's talk about the Paulding Light. A well-known folktale is kept in the little western Michigan town of Paulding. The train conductor's wayward spirit, slain when his locomotive derailed, is responsible for the light. Observers can see a brilliant light flickering on and off at the end of a valley just outside of town. Paulding locals attribute this light to a variety of paranormal phenomena, including ghosts. According to one very spooky tale, a grandmother carrying a flickering lamp is searching for their missing youngster. However, the reality is much more dull. It turns out to be nothing more than the headlights of a neighboring roadway. Well, that's a bummer. Number 16. The Summerton Man. It's possible that a long-standing mystery in Australia will be cleared up in the summer of 2022. A body was discovered in Adelaide's Summerton Park on December 1st, 1948. He was dressed in American clothes with the name Keen embroidered on them. A piece of paper that said Tamam Shud, which is Persian meaning it's finished, was in his pocket. When the book from which this paper was torn was eventually retrieved, the cover revealed enigmatic language scribbled by investigators. DNA assisted in identifying the man as Carl Webb in July 2022. Given that Webb frequently wagered on horse races, it is currently thought that the mysterious writing discovered in the book contained horse names. And lastly, his nephew, who formerly resided in the U.S., is probably the source of the clothing.